holiday that brought you the most joy as a kid? Maybe it was dressing up on Halloween or blowing out those birthday candles. Maybe for you it was the fireworks exploding on the 4th of July. For me, hands down, it was Christmas. I loved Christmas. In our house, as the days grew closer to Christmas, the pile of presents just grew larger and larger, slowly and progressively taking up the whole living room. Was it excessive? Yes. Did I care as a kid? No. I loved it. Of course, the best presents came from Santa. The bike, the Cabbage Patch Kid, the Snoopy snow cone machine, which was amazing. All 4 times that I used it. I love Christmas, and this joy that it gave me, this made me super excited for Christmas 5 years ago. 5 years ago was my first Christmas as a mom, at least as a foster mom. Earlier that year, our son Isaac had moved in. He was 10 at the time. We would later go on to adopt him, but at this point, he was still our foster son. Prior to living with us, he had lived with another family for 17 months. Now, I won't go into the reasons why Isaac was in foster care. That's his story to tell. What I will tell you is that he experienced more trauma in those years than many of us will experience in a lifetime. 5 years ago, I wanted him to have a good Christmas. It was a December night when Isaac told us that his after-school club had gone to see Santa. I said, Isaac, that's awesome. You went to see Santa. Did you tell him what you want? He said yes, and he began naming all the things that he told Santa, the toys, the games, the action figures. Meanwhile, I'm trying to keep note of all the things that he's told Santa. And as he's finishing up his list, he says something that I'll never forget. He said, I think he's going to come this year. I think I've been good enough. What do you mean? I asked. He said, he came last year. I was good enough. I knew that the prior year he had been with another foster family. I hesitantly asked the next question, knowing full well the answer. What about before then? Did Santa come then? Isaac just dropped his head in shame and shook it no. My heart broke. I knew what this meant for him. This meant that for 8 years, he looked forward to Christmas, but it was to see if Santa would come. For 8 years, knowing that if Santa came, he'd have the answer that he hoped for, and for 8 years, the answer that he got was there are no gifts. You weren't good enough. Now I know the idea of Santa and a child finding their worth in Santa, it's odd, and Santa, when you think about it, is a little bit bizarre that there's some old man who peeps in on our children when they're awake and when they're asleep, and then he's the one who gets to determine whether they're naughty or nice. Oh, not to mention that he bribes them by giving them toys. I mean, really, think about it. Santa's a little creepy. He probably should not be driving a red sleigh with reindeer. He most likely would, if you were real, be driving a white van with tinted windows. However, the story of Santa is bigger than me, and I can't control that. All I know is how my son felt when Santa didn't come. Which brings me to 5 years ago. About a week later, we received a box full of gifts from our foster agency. These were gifts that had been purchased by people who we didn't know, who didn't know my son, who cared to make sure that he had a good Christmas. I watched on Christmas morning as he unwrapped each one, as he unwrapped the Star Wars action figures, the Beyblades, the new coat, the new shoes, and I saw the excitement in his eyes and the joy that he experienced. But more than that, I saw his relief. These gifts meant that he had been good enough. These gifts that he received, these are the same kinds of gifts that our group has been asked to provide for foster kids this year in the drive organized by Chad and Richard. You may recall a few weeks ago, they sent out an email list. And on this list there were 10 kids. 10 kids meeting at Christmas. There's Elijah, who's 11, who wants a Nerf gun. Diana, who is 14, who wants makeup. 5 years ago, on a list just like this, was a 10-year-old boy named Isaac, who wanted Star Wars action figures and Beyblades. This was my son. We were that family, and I saw what these gifts mean. These gifts meant that they were good enough. Now, we've been asked to purchase these gifts and bring them by December 1st. I know for some of you, maybe you're not able to do that financially, and that's okay, or maybe you're giving elsewhere, that's okay too. I'm not gonna judge. In fact, I won't even know. But I am gonna ask, as we leave this list over here, and Chad's gonna send out an updated one, that for those of you who can give, that you take a look at this list. You look at these kids, and you think about them. Because we have a chance to do something for them. When you buy a present, you're not just making sure that a child has something to open on Christmas Day. You get to send a message. You get to say, child, you're not forgotten. You deserve better. And child, precious child, you are good enough.